A very good morning to one and all. Myself, Bhavini Rohit, Assistant Professor at SSR College of Pharmacy. I welcome you all on behalf of SSR College of Pharmacy for 5 days webinar on AICT Training and Learning, academic sponsored online FTP on OECD Principles of Good Laboratory Practices organized by SSR College of Pharmacy. All over the world, on 25th September, pharmacists will celebrate World Pharmacist Day. This day to encourage activities that promote and advocate for the role of pharmacists in improving health in every corner of the world. So I wish you all a very happy Pharmacist Day on behalf of SSR College of Pharmacy. Today, we have three sessions conducted by first, Dr. Sweetani sir on the topic Archive of Electronic Archive. Dr. Rakesh Rawal sir will speak about share his knowledge on peer review histopathology. So today our first session will be conducted by Dr. Bharat Mani sir on archives, electronic archives. Before starting the session, I will to introduce our first speaker of the day, Dr. Bharat Mani sir, on behalf of SSR College of Pharmacy. Dr. Bharat Mani sir is Product Sustainability Consultant Manager at Dow Chemicals International Private Limited, Mumbai. Sir has done PhD Diploma in Ecology and Environment from Indian Institute of Ecology and Environment in 1992 and MSc in Zoology from University of Bombay in 1995. Sir is core expertise in providing toxicology consultancy, support to the business, interference with the business, professional services, and government bodies. Sir has also been involved in REACH, safety data sheet preparations, regulatory norms, good laboratory practices, and reproductive toxicity. Sir has industrial experience in various organizations like divisions of Dr. Reddy Laboratories as a professional service representative, Joy Research Foundation as a senior research officer, Glenmark Pharmaceuticals Limited as a senior research scientist, and now Sir has been served as product system consultant at Dow Chemical International Private Limited in Mumbai. Sir has also had an academic experience in Urban Development Institute as a research associate and manager. Sir has attended various workshops and training programs related to good laboratory practices, internal quality audit, principles of good laboratory practices, interactions, and many more. Sir has published a paper in International Journal of Environment and Toxicology on the topic of physicochemical characteristics of Lake Pokhran. Sir has also participated in Brinton Crop Protection Conference held in Brinton, UK in November 1996. We are so glad to have you, sir. So, sir, kindly take the charge and proceed with the session.
Thank you, Bhavani Madam, for the warm introduction. And a very good morning to all of you all. So, we start off with the session. I am pretty sure that over the past 5 days, you have had a very detailed overview on good laboratory practices. So today I would be touching upon the topics of archives and electronic archives. So moving on further, I will be getting into the presentation mode. If someone could just confirm that the screen is visible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's visible, sir. You can.
Yeah. So this is the agenda that we have that we would be running through today. We will be starting off with looking at some definitions of archives, electronic archives, what are records, what is the responsibility of the role of an archivist, so on and so forth. Running through, I would be providing with an introduction to archiving, a need for archiving, what is it that would be archived, responsibility, who and when, the roles of archivists, the duration of the records that need to be archived, where would records be archived, and while I'm trying to distinguish between a normal archive versus an electronic archives out here, so electronic archives, there would be some additional touch points that we would be looking at, which would be covering right from regulations, outsourcing, portable media, what's electronic media, covering outsourced records, how do they capture an electronic archive process. And finally, I'd be trying to wind it up with some common regulatory findings and also looking at some vendor selection checklist should organizations be looking at a third party archival provider. And finally, I would be opening up to any questions and answers that participants may have. Of course, having said that, at any point in time during the session, feel free to interrupt and then ask questions. I will try and have, say, maybe a pause between these topics and these agenda items to check on any questions that may be coming. So definitions, so GLP, what is GLP? Good laboratory practice basically is a quality system concerned with the organizational process and conditions under which non-clinical health and environmental studies are planned, performed, monitored, recorded, archived, and reported. So, I would go back to my days when we were learning the ropes of good laboratory practices. We were remembering it. I will just share a small acronym out here. We were kind of remembering GLP as 2 P's and 2 R's, which is planning, performing, recording, and reporting. Now, over the course of time, you would realize that we've had incorporated aspects of monitoring, archiving, so on and so forth. So this is basically to drive home the point that as kind of the understanding of what good laboratory practice increases, so on, likewise, the definitions of GLP have also evolved and have changed accordingly. So majority of these definitions, by and large, are self-explanatory. I will try and touch upon only those which are pretty important. So since I would be picking on the topic of archives, so what is an archive? The facilities and supporting resources necessary for the secure retention, maintenance, and retrieval of materials accumulated by an organization. Now that is what would constitute an archives. Who is an archivist? An individual who's been designated by the management to be accountable for the management of the archive, that is operations and procedures for archiving. What is an electronic archive? This is, of course, out here, I would like to also, get out a point that there is going to be a difference between a normal paper archive and as well as an electronic archive. So the designated repository in which electronic records are retained for their long-term preservation is what would be defined as an electronic archives. And like your laboratory management, information management systems, you also have electronic document and records management system. What is an electronic record? Information recorded in electronic format that requires a computerized system to access or process is what is defined as an electronic record. And obviously, since we are dealing with electronic data out here, there would be a need to also have staff from the information technology. So designated personnel who have been given responsibility for providing technical expertise and training to staff using a computerized system. Moving on the definitions, what is constituted or defined as a material? So this is basically a collective term that is given to all documents, which could also include but not limited to raw data, source data, study planning, specific records, your standard operating procedures, your calibration and validation records, so on and so forth. Collectively, all this is what would be defined as material. Now, what is a metadata? So information that is associated with data that provides context and understanding. That is basically, in a nutshell, I would say data about data is what is defined as metadata. So storage media, there are different kind of physical materials on which information could be recorded. And of course, we have seen certain media, certain storage media, which are no longer currently in vogue. For those of us who have been around, I'm pretty sure we would have at least seen the floppy disk. But today, I'm certain, none of y'all may even recollect what a floppy disk. When was the last time you would have used a floppy disk? So with those definitions and introduction to the definitions, I would be jumping into what is archiving and the need for archiving. So essentially, I mean, any research records and materials which are vital to any kind of programs, and they need to be stored in a good laboratory practice or a GLP compliant archive facility that enables rapid and reliable retrieval. Now, going back, I mean, during the inaugural sessions, I mean, there was certain touch points which did mention about reconstruction of particular studies. So, an archive is the place from where you would be in a position to reconstruct the entire study. So, in a nutshell, I mean, your rat zero or your test animal zero is what you would be in a position to easily identify based upon the records and the robustness of the archival system in place. While the principles and compliance aspects related to archiving of the electronic records are no different to that of paper, but there are certain differences between the physical aspects of archiving electronic records, and therefore, when we're talking about electronic archives, they would be having certain different procedures which would be different from that of physical archiving. Now, moving on to the next slide. Why is archiving needed? Obviously, that is the first point is this is a mandatory requirement as laid down under the good laboratory practices compliance. And essentially, archiving of this information ensures the data remains in a safe and secure location that can be retrieved when we need it the most. And last but not the least, this is also a part of the regulatory compliance as mandated by the Food and Drug Authority, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the OECD has specific GLP guidelines requiring the archival of study materials. I mean, essentially, the archives also preserves and eliminates the risk of accidental or malicious destruction, protecting business interests and intellectual property, and can be recalled for study, reconstruction, or legal defense. Now, this point basically goes back again to a comment during the inaugural session of during the time of an audit, information could not be retrieved, and hence the university lost on the funding opportunity and also was blacklisted. So, I mean, when you when you have a set of records, a set of data, which would help to reconstruct a study, I mean, it is as good as you have recorded it, hence the operation or the study holds valid and was conducted. Moving on to the next point, what needs to be archived? So basically, whatever that is needed to reconstruct a study, which would be including both paper and electronic records, would need to be archived. So this could not be limited, but would definitely be covering raw data, documentation, protocols, specimens, samples, interim reports, final reports, facility records, and this bits and bobs of information could take multiple forms, including electronic media, paper records, reports, pathology samples, slides, images, and medical records. Moving on to the next aspect of archives on the responsibility part. Now, typically, this responsibility is not limited to one person, but it is a collective responsibility which starts right from test facility management to the study director, to the archivist, and as well as the quality assurance unit. So let us now try and break the collective responsibility and have a look at what individual responsibilities would cover. Now, the test facility management has to ensure that specific personnel with specific responsibility for the management of the electronic archives are earmarked and have been identified accordingly. Last but not the least, such personnel should also be qualified and have relevant experience and appropriate training to perform their duties in accordance with the GLP principles. Now, here there is a caveat: if parts of the archiving process are not covered by the personnel or test facility, the test facility management has to ensure that GLP principles are fulfilled by the service provider. Now, this is where I would be touching upon the service level agreements and also get into the aspect in case the archiving facility is outsourced to a third party vendor. The test facility management should also ensure appropriate facilities, equipment, materials, standard operating procedures are available, and the electronic archiving systems are suitable for their intended purpose, are validated, operated, and maintained in accordance with the principles of GLP. And likewise, the TFM or the test facility management should also establish procedures for all aspects of the life cycle of archived electronic media. This particular, the last point is very similar to what would be happening in a kind of a physical archive, wherein you would be archiving, amending, maintaining, migrating, reformatting, convert, retrieve, and probably delete records. So similar kind of principles would also hold true for the electronic archives. Moving on to the next point, the study director ensures that all raw data, documentation, protocols, specimens, and final reports are transferred to the archives during or at close of the study. Now, this is the definition as is provided by the FDA and EPA, and as is outlined in the OECD guidelines, OECD GLP guidelines. The study director ensures that after completion, including termination of the study plan, final report, raw data, and supporting materials are archived. This slide basically touches upon the role and responsibilities of the archivist. Now, archivist is basically responsible for ensuring that records submitted for archiving correspond to that that has been submitted for documentation, as during the transmittal chain of custody documentation. There should be a documented acceptance of the records into the archive by archiving staff. The archivist also should be ensuring that there is an orderly storage and retrieval of records as facilitated, example by means of indexing. You cannot have an archive without a kind of an indexing procedure. And an indexing procedure would essentially help you in easy retrieval of the particular record or the study information. Controlled access to the archive and archive records. Now, obviously, having said that, archives is not a kind of a facility that is should be easily accessible to one and all. It is only personnel with a need and with approval from the management and the archivist who should be in a position to access archive and the information that resides in the archives, irrespective of whether it could be a paper archive or paper records or electronic media. Ensuring that the movement of archived records is properly controlled and documented, and preservation of records held in the archive. So any kind of job description, standard operating procedures, contracts, policies should be established to define the manner in which the role is performed, the electronic archive operates, and the records are managed. Now, when we talk about larger archives, there may be a need not to, wherein the archives is not managed by a single person, but by a team of personnel. So again, it is a requirement that the staff, the entire team managing the archives have to be adequately trained, and they should work under the supervision of the designated archivist. Moving on to the next slide, the responsibility of the quality assurance unit, the QA or the QAU, who are responsible for inspecting all aspects of archiving for compliance with GLP. And like is typical, wherein a study gets audited by the QA or the QAU, this also constitutes or could cover a part of the facility audit, the archival audit. And the QA should be qualified in terms of IT knowledge and properly trained in the corresponding archive systems to be able to inspect electronic archiving procedures. Moving on to the next aspect of how long do records need to be archived. So while it roughly spans from 2 years to 5 years, as mandated by FDA, records need to be maintained for 2 years following application for a research or marketing permit from the time submitted. For non-clinical studies, which cover both human health and as well as environmental studies, the mandated period is 5 years. So by and large, in all other situations, at least 2 years from the date of study completion, termination, or discontinuation is the period, is the duration for how long the records need to be maintained in the archives. Moving on to the next point, where should records be archived? Obviously, without kind of batting an eyelid, I would say that archive facilities should be secure. They should be limiting and constructed so that archived material are protected from untimely deterioration. An ideal facility should have separate storage areas controlled by dedicated and redundant HVAC systems. When I say separate storage areas, I mean probably distinguishing of a separate dry archives, a wet archives, and an electronic archives. So obviously, physical paper records is what would be forming part of the dry archives. And in case we're talking about non-clinical studies, then the associated tissue, the tissue specimen bottles, the slides, and the tissue blocks would be stored as part of wet archives. Temperature control units, including low and ultra low freezers, there may be a need for you to maintain the test items under low and ultra low conditions, thereby necessitating the need to have temperature control storage units. It is also best recommended that these kind of storage areas there should be appropriate fire barriers, or they should be fireproof. Access should be limited and should be controlled for archives. In addition to that, it is recommended, these are all recommendations, so it is recommended to also have an off-site alarm monitoring in addition to audible alarms. Indexing of the records is also, this is what an ideal facility should be having in place, and an archivist control. So before I get into elaborate part on electronic archives, I'd like to pause for a moment here and check, are there any questions with regards to the ground that we have covered?
Sir, we have a procedure that moderator will take up all the questions asked by the participants.
At the end.
Yeah, at the end. So you can
At the
continue.
end.
Yeah, and we have around 15 minutes time for that, 10 to 15 minutes. So
perfect.
Parikshit Prajapati sir is there, and he will take care of this entire event.
Okay, perfect. Then I will continue with the with the talk.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So electronic archives, from this point onwards, my slides are going to be a little bit busy. So again, I will try and touch upon the important points. So electronic archives, one overriding principle in all regulations is that records to be considered to have been archived should come under the control of an appointed archivist. So the take-home message is that you do not need to have a separate archivist for a person who covers, the physical archives, covering your paper records, your specimens, and your other aspects. And you do not need to have a separate archivist for your electronic archives. It could be a single individual who could be managing both the archives, your physical archives, as well as the electronic archives, provided the person has got the necessary qualifications and the needed training to manage both these archival systems. Now, one thing as part of electronic archives is covering under electronic archives is to be aware of the US regulation on electronic records and electronic signatures, which is mandated or covered under US 21 CFR. Now, these regulations are focused on generation and use of electronic records that are required under US FDA regulations and the maintenance of their authenticity and validity. So, the 21 CFR will also include a section covering electronic signatures, and compliance with the regulation is mandated if records are required by the US FDA regulation. Take home message: in case there is a report that is being submitted to US FDA, you need to ensure that you are compliant with the 21 CFR 11 part. So, the next few slides, we will be touching upon the regulations to archiving of electronic records. What are basically the regulations that would be covering to archiving of electronic records? To start off with, obviously, we will take a step back out here and start off from scratch, wherein we go back to your drawing board, if I could say so, that we would need to understand how kind of decide to archive records in electronic form needs to be decided prior to creation. So before you set up, say, maybe any kind of an electronic form, an electronic record, you need to understand the ramifications of the system and critical implications for record generation and archive. While in some cases, outputs from scientific instruments are captured electronically and promptly printed, reviewed, and approved, the print is defined as raw data and can be archived. But bear in mind, some of these printouts are printed on thermal paper, which obviously over a period of time tends to fade away. So it is in the best of interest or of adhering or complying with GLP to transfer or translate this data into media which does not deteriorate over time. So the electronic data can be processed to reduce the analytical report. The final report will be audited by QA against the paper raw data to confirm the accuracy and processing and reporting the results. Now, the third point is basically covering the equipments which are used in generation, processing, and retention of electronic records, which need to be tested to demonstrate the reliability and accuracy of the system and its ability to capture such data and retain the data in its original form. While the topic on computer systems validation will not be covered here, but in the interest, I would say, for purposes of better understanding, I would point you in the direction of the appropriate records at 21 CFR 11, in which guidances have been provided for this particular point. As briefly touched upon the previous slide, let's look at the archive mechanisms for archiving of electronic records. So there are two aspects out here. One is kind of defining an archival area as part of a computerized system. And the second aspect would be having a designated electronic archive system or systems. Now, how do you define an archive area? A computerized system basically has its own archive area, maybe physically separated from non-archive records or maybe physically separated. As an example, a record may be physically separated by storing them in a separate file system or virtually separated using metadata to denote that records have been archived. In either case, archived records must be locked so that they cannot be altered or deleted without detection and must be under the control of the nominated archivist. And where is a designated archive system? So where a designated electronic system is used, it is permissible to have a single archive application for the management of all archived electronic records, or to have a number of archive systems that are designed to work with specified feeder applications. Now, there are off-the-shelf designated archival systems that are available, and it would be in the interest of the organization to check the robustness of these archival systems and ensure that they comply with the principles as laid down, principles of GLP, before proceeding further. So again, this basic in this particular slide, the take-home message remains, as is with paper records, any kind of alterations modifications or corrections must be appropriately recorded without obliterating the original records. This information is usually recorded in the audit trail. So long story short, you need to have a log of the people who basically access information that's residing in the electronic data. You need to also have a log of the alterations, modifications, corrections that would be done. And having said that, what is metadata? Metadata also needs to be retained. The regulations applicable to electronic records also apply to metadata. Now, in this particular slide, I would be touching upon outsourcing of IT because many larger organizations, when it comes to management of their electronic archives, outsource this particular aspect to IT organizations or IT vendors. So in order to maintain flexibility within the infrastructure, organizations may outsource some or all of the IT systems and services, including archiving. And archiving regulations and standards do not preclude the use of third parties. So, the guidelines does not stop you from using any third parties for these particular activities. However, additional factors that need to be considered include the following requirements: that the storage location of archive data must comply with data protection legislation and safe harbor agreements. Now, safe harbor agreements is not applicable out here because this is more US centric, but the takeaway message is that the storage location of the archive data must comply with the local regulations and legislations. Disaster recovery process must be in place to ensure that data are secure. And there should be a process of transfer of records following contract termination. Else, you would be stuck in limbo wherein your records are stuck with a third-party vendor who has got the records. The ability of the network connection to efficiently transfer large volumes of data must be assessed for performance and reliability. Going on to the next slide, use of portable media. As we are aware today, you have numerous options for storage of data, covering portable media such as magnetic tape, DVD, CD, which has become obsolete, optical disk, external hard drives, USB flash drives, and the most recent one, cloud. Now, these can be placed in a physical archive and managed in the same manner as other hard copy records. Of course, the cloud storage on the cloud would have additional checkpoints also in place. When archiving electronic records in this way, the same archiving principles that apply to other physical records will also apply. And in order to address issues caused by degradation and obsolescence, the approach should be that the storage media would require regular testing and also need migration of data from older media to newer media should the situation be such, and ensuring that such migration from older media to newer media have appropriate validation checks in place. Moving on to the next slide, the source of electronic records. So this particular slide covers the fact that you could be looking at any kind of equipment ranging right from a simple balance to your sophisticated computerized laboratory equipment such as HPLC, so on and so forth, and laboratory information management systems. Now, all these include, what would be covered under electronic records management system. And all these systems may also need to be archived in an electronic format. Therefore, the takeaway message is that when you are looking at information that is being captured from data, you need to ensure that the system so developed must take into account long-term retention requirements, particularly in relation to accessibility, readability, and possible any future processing needs. I will go on to the next slide. Now, this slide basically also covers outsourced record capture. Now, as part of particular study designs, there are particular field studies which may be outsourced to external organizations, universities, research stations. Now, how does information or data that is part of the study that is conducted in these external facilities captured? So where activities are outsourced to third parties, plans should be in place to ensure that arrangements for archiving of any electronic records will permit continuation and preservation of the system on which to access the electronic records. Alternatively, the electronic records, including relevant metadata, should be preserved in a format that does not rely on the source system being available. Now, the fundamental point out here is you need to look at a system which does not make you dependent on the source system. Now, in case all of us are aware of the fact that the leaps and bounds with which IT systems are progressing, a kind of a platform that was introduced about 6 months earlier has today become obsolete. Hence, the takeaway message or to drive home the point is to ensure that your source system is valid enough and remains available for a longer, for the longest duration, to ensure that you do not kind of fall back and end up in a situation where you have data, but unfortunately you do not have a system with which to read data. We will now be getting into the electronic archive process. Now, this has got various steps ranging right from selection, capture, processing, ingestion, so on and so forth. We will try and look at these points a little bit in detail. So the electronic archival process, and under that the sub-process of selection, capturing and processing. Now, records which are captured from standalone systems such as automated temperature monitoring system for fridges and freezers is a relatively straightforward manner. However, a file of individual values can also be transferred to appropriate electronic storage medium. As said, more complex systems may require process data generated from different analytical platforms and composite information from other systems, example, databases. In either scenario, the system that generates electronic records should be assessed individually to determine the archive requirements and archive process. The movement of electronic records from the point of capture generation to the point of archiving. The location of electronic records throughout the process should be clearly stated as documented in the standard operating procedure. At every stage, it should be there is a need to ensure that the electronic records are protected by access control and audit trails. And prior to archiving, any permitted alterations or amendments to the electronic data must be traceable by recording the name of the individual who made the change, the date on which the change was made, the nature of the change, and the reason for the change. Now, a quick example may include conversion of material to a human readable format or the addition of further metadata to assist in management of archived content. At the end of this stage, basically, the record, including all metadata, must become fixed. And post-fixing, there should not be any kind of changes made unless and until there is a proper business reason to make those changes. Moving on to the second aspect under the electronic archive process, which is called as ingestion. This is the stage wherein records kind of post-ingestion are deemed to have become permanent and passed to the control of the archivist. So some of the steps that should be looked at during the ingestion process is confirmation between the depositor and the archivist as to the electronic records to be archived, the timing of transfer of electronic records to the archive, the identification of the records being archived. The metadata provided for electronic records being archived should be such they are easily identifiable, located, and retrieved. Obviously, the next step that comes in hand is verification by the archivist of the successful and complete transfer of the electronic records, which would be a variable depending upon the type of system being used. Now, for simple system, this could be pretty much straightforward. And while for complex systems, which would involve probably information coming in from databases, from external sources, this may probably be involving a more rigorous process, which may mandate a need for data sampling to ensure that all the appropriate information has been transferred. Now, the second point that comes up is when you're using automated electronic archive process, the principles defined above should still apply. And these are usually defined and applied during setup of the system. In some situations, assistance of folks from the information technology staff may be necessary to complete the archiving process. Storage. Now, electronic records should be archived in such a way to ensure their reliability, authenticity, integrity, and usability at all times is done. Storage of archived materials should be aligned with the records preservation plan, and electronic archives should be backed up. The archivist may delegate responsibility for the installation, operation, and performance of the storage system to an IT staff or a contractor, and a process for managing and maintaining the electronic archive systems should be agreed. Documentation. There is a huge load of documentation that also is part of the electronic archive process. Policies and standard operating procedures that are basically used to describe the archiving process should be in place, and they should not necessarily be limited to the following. You could also expand upon additional items depending upon your requirements: definition and description of what constitute the archives, description of acceptable file formats. You definitely want to have this defined at the beginning of setting up the archival process, rather than ending up at some time in the future wherein you have a particular format which unfortunately relies upon a particular format which is kind of not readable or not recognizable. The conditions under which electronic records are stored and any monitoring of those conditions. Procedures to ensure integrity of the archival storage and records archive. These must include periodic checks on the conditions of the records archive to ensure that there is no deterioration of storage media or to confirm that bit level degradation has not occurred. Procedures for the receipt and checking of electronic records. Maintenance of archived records, including the refreshing and migration of electronic records. Definition of required metadata to facilitate searching of archived electronic records to ensure timely and accurate retrieval, so on and so forth. And last but not the least, you also need to ensure that this facility has access control, and you have also covered aspects of disaster recovery. Access and security. So when we're talking about the electronic archive, so access is basically defined as taking a copy of the electronic record, and simply consulting a read-only copy is called as viewing. Now, this is basic difference between access rights and viewing rights. Moving on, processes should be in place to ensure that access to the archive records in the electronic archives is controlled by the archivist. This may require the use of password control logon or access level restrictions in accordance with the record classification of the organization. The electronic archive should also maintain an audit trail of those who have access and access archive materials through password control logon or other suitable control mechanisms. Electronic records that have been archived may on occasion may need to be viewed. The ability to view archived records should be restricted to individuals with a genuine business need it should not be necessary to maintain a log of records view in this way. So, as is similar to your physical archives, electronic archives also should have restricted access and should not be open to all. Moving on further, there should be processes implemented to ensure that archived records cannot be altered, moved, or destroyed without appropriate authorization. Any approved action of this nature should be appropriately documented. And in case electronic records are covered on portable media, the same principles discussed above should apply. Retention and destruction of media and electronic records. So this particular slide, we would be covering these particular points. So retention periods apply regardless of the format of the records, and records should be retained for the periods specified in the organization's records retention schedule. Management should be responsible for preparing a records retention schedule for the different types of electronic records, taking into account the business, regulatory, and legislative requirements. Electronic records should be organized and stored according to the classification scheme established internally to manage group of records for possible reuse, transfer to a business, or subsequent destruction. So, it is strongly recommended that classification of records ideally take place at the time of creation, thereby ensuring that it becomes easy from a maintenance standpoint and from a long-term perspective. So organizations should also have a records destruction policy that includes electronic records. In order to provide evidence of compliance with records retention policy, organizations should retain a record of destruction that lists the records destroyed, which covers physical records and as well as electronic records. For all electronic records, the destruction policy should specify whether the destruction relates to removal of the pointer, that is, you're actually removing the files or you're overwriting it. So depending, and at certain times, whether you would be destroying the encryption key that is needed for accessing the record. So depending upon the media, whether it's you're using a CD or DVD or a USB device, hard drive, appropriate means should be taken to render such media unusable. Just to draw a a quick parallel out here, I think so. Earlier on, it was very much common to hear examples of certain question papers or answer sheets which were available at your local your Raddiwala or your your waste vendor. So similar situation should not happen when it comes to electronic records. So consideration should also be given to destroying any copies of electronic records due to destruction that may be held on backup tapes, and whether or not to destroy these records in line with the regular backup tape cycle. Access and security, we will continue in this slide, and we would be looking at certain circumstances wherein electronic records may need to be permanently removed from an archive, may include change of ownership of records and move from one archive location to another. And last but not the least, this could also cover, say, maybe when an organization is taken over through a merger and acquisition, or it is sold or hived out. So obviously, the current electronic archival procedures may also need to take into account these situations while formulating their particular plan. The release of records from the archive under the circumstances above should be documented and approved by the management. This slide, we would be touching upon the preservation strategy for media degradation, because it is a very well known fact that depending upon the portable media that is used, although manufacturers claim that degradation of the particular storage media may not happen for a period of 5 years, but still it is a known fact that without appropriate storage conditions, some media tend to deteriorate very quickly, even though they may not appear to be physically damaged. I'm pretty sure that most of us would have encountered this scenario since many of us would be using your SD cards, while outwardishly we have found that the SD card to be intact, but it is when we insert it into the SD card or a appropriate USB reader, we realize that the SD card is no longer readable. So in order to avoid these kind of situations, which is called as media degradation, the processes should be in place to ensure that media on archived electronic records are stored does not degrade, preventing archived records from being lost or read. At the time of selecting the storage media, consideration should be given to the length of the time that the electronic record is to be retained. Archived electronic records must be migrated to an alternative media prior to degradation of the media. The ability to read the media must be regularly checked, and any such migration should be documented and validated. Now, individual bits within documents could become corrupted, thereby making the file inaccessible or not readable. This is known as bit level degradation and can be caused by a number of mechanisms such as file transfer, media depredation, and environmental impacts. In case the storage conditions within the archives, the temperature conditions have risen considerably, it is a known fact that electronic media would probably be impacted under such situations. Therefore, when you encounter such situations, as depending upon the kind of size of the electronic archives, it is recommended that a sample check be done to ensure that there has been no media degradation, meaning there has been no loss of data. This particular slide, we will touch upon media obsolescence, wherein we look at certain media which has become obsolete. As an example, floppy disks, which are today no longer seen. So basically, to circumvent the issue of media obsolescence, processes should be in place to ensure that the media on which archived electronic records are stored does not become unreadable, because the hardware and software required to read them becomes unavailable. This may be achieved by migrating archived records from one storage media to another. As an example, when you move or copy your data from a floppy disk to a hard drive. Of course, having said that, any such migration should be documented and validated. This particular slide, we would touch upon hardware obsolescence, wherein the hardware that is being used for capturing data becomes obsolete. So how do you ensure that archived electronic data are protected from hardware obsolescence? So many electronic records that are archived have a retention period in excess of the typical life expectancy of the electronic hardware. This means that hardware used to archive electronic records and the hardware that is needed to access the electronic records often becomes obsolete, redundant, many years before the electronic records themselves can be destroyed. So archived records should be protected from loss due to hardware obsolescence. Processes should be in place to migrate archived electronic records to ensure accessibility by current and future hardware. Software obsolescence. Here we will be touching upon the points wherein a software would become obsolete and the associated kind of processes or checkpoints that we need to mitigate for such eventualities. So a software development cycle may result in electronic records created by older versions of software not being fully compatible with newer versions. In addition, software may no longer be available, thereby rendering access to electronic records less likely. Therefore, a digital preservation strategy should be in place and help identify how to mitigate software obsolescence and the impact this could have on previously generated electronic records. How do you achieve this? This may be achieved by maintaining a regimen of monitoring the archive electronic records and then migrating from one software system to another. As an example, migrating from one format to another, wherein you migrate from MS Word 2 to MS Word 10, version 10, or conversion to another file format, wherein you convert a document from an MS Word to a PDF document. Having said that, such migration should also be documented and validated. Digital preservation strategy, that is another aspect of the electronic archive process, which we will be looking at into this particular slide. So electronic records which are simply left or locked away on a computer or computer system does not constitute an electronic archive. An electronic archive must be carefully planned and a digital preservation strategy implemented. Without a preservation plan, there is no electronic archive. So to ensure that the electronic records are retrievable and readable over the whole of the retention period, the preservation plan should describe how issues described earlier are addressed. Electronic records stored in a highly structured format, such as complex database, should be rapidly searched, analyzed, and it should recommend it that a particular strategy be in place to cover the current, existing, and the future needs. Future proofing. This is probably my last slide in the electronic archives, and I have a few more. I think so. I have about 4 more minutes, and probably I will just take these slides briefly. And
Sir, you may
probably
continue, sir. Sir, if you have more slides, you may continue, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I don't want to upset your time schedule, so I was just monitoring.
No, sir. No issue, sir. No issue, sir.
Okay, thank you. So future proofing. So consideration should basically be given to the possibility that the electronic archive system software itself could become obsolete over time and may require updating or replacement. Now, electronic archive software may also impose its own limitations if later versions of the software are not developed by the manufacturer and are not able to support the achieved file formats and their versions. So it is therefore recommended to consider this issue and discuss potential migration options with vendors at the time of selecting an electronic archiving solution. And is there any comment? Okay.
No, sir. No, sir.
As with any computerized system, so consideration should also be given to the ultimate retirement of an electronic archive system, which is called as typically end of life cycle. So which typically we do with our equipments. So likewise, with any computerized system, you need to take into account or take into consideration, the retirement of an electronic archive system and how to respond if it becomes necessary to abandon use of that particular system. As an example, if a vendor ceases to trade and can no longer support the system. So this could become an acute issue, particularly for cloud-based systems, because of the potential risk of immediate loss of access and difficulty of reinstatement, because you do not have access to the data and neither are you in a position to reinstate it onto another platform. Therefore, a strategy should be in place at the time of purchase to ensure that options exist to transfer data to an alternate archiving system, employing a validated procedure if and when it becomes necessary. So some of the that basically finishes off with my slide on electronic archives. I have, I guess, about 2 or 3 more slides to go through. So in this particular slide, I would be touching upon some of the common regulatory findings that have been encountered when auditing various facilities. So time and again, auditors have been requesting for study materials and find recurring issues that could have been prevented by proper archiving. Some of them are that there is no centralized area allowing for orderly storage and expedient retrieval of records, data, and specimen. No individual responsible for archiving all required records, raw data, and specimen. Records requested by auditor could not be retrieved. Materials not archived during or at close of the study, and unauthorized archives, access to the archives. These are some of the common regulatory findings that audit teams have encountered when auditing various facilities. This particular slide, I will check upon the vendor selection checklist. Should organizations be looking at external vendors for, in case they are outsourcing their archive needs? So, who you can trust your data? Consider the following when selecting an archiving provider. Staff, obviously, is the archiving staff trained and can they comply with GLP regulations? Organization of data, and would the organization of data be such that it would facilitate easier retrieval? Protection, how are your records protected from unauthorized access alteration? Facility, can it withstand condition that could damage physical and or electronic records? And permits, do they have necessary clearance permit to transport, import and export research materials immediately? These are some of the references that I had that probably you could also kind of go through for additional bits and bobs of information. And this gets me to the last slide. And thank you for your attention and open to any questions if there are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for touching the archives, electronic archives, role of archivist, archiving process, and lastly, you have also covered, sir, some regulatory findings so thoroughly, sir. Sir, you touched the topic so thoroughly, and if you have permission, then I can have some questions from the participants.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, okay, sir. Sir, Dr. Ramayya Meddy has one question. How long we can achieve the electronic records? Is there any specific guidelines for hard copy and soft copy of archiving?
Well, by and large, I mean, when you're talking about, okay, I mean, I think so. I need to break this question into two parts. When you're talking about physical archives, as mentioned, in one of my slides, 2 to 5 years is the period that is stipulated for physical archives. When you're talking about, your standard operating procedures, your raw data, so on and so forth. But when it comes to kind of your electronic archives, the nature of the electronic media that is being used to capture or store the information would dictate the duration of the archival period. Did that answer the question? Did that answer the question?
Yes, sir. You have answered it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dr. Javed Ahmed Khan has one question, sir. Can the archives be stored in a remote location, different from test facility?
Well, that would depend upon the the space. I would say constraint in case it turns out to be a limiting factor for the test facility, for the location of the test facility, then there is no reason why the archival facility could be at a separate location, provided all the principles of good laboratory practice are followed and implemented thoroughly.
Okay, sir. Sir, one question from Preeti. Paper documents will be stored with authorized signature, but what about electronic data which we archive?
So again, when you talk about electronic data, you need to take into account whether whether your organization is kind of compliant with the 21 CFR Part 11. Now, in case so, then there are electronic signatures which also get captured as part of the electronic data that is being captured. Now, as an example, I can give you, I could probably share is, in case you are having an online weighing system for monitoring body weights of animals in a particular study. Now, obviously, post kind of, taking the body weight or recording the body weight of say maybe 200 animals in that particular study, you would need to have an electronic signature, meaning there could be a process wherein you would have to punch in your user code or your user ID, which is unique. And thereby, once you click the submit button, your data gets transferred and also along with a portion of the electronic signature.
Okay, sir. Dr. Suvendu Kumar Sahu has question. Is it possible to harmonize retention times for archive records?
Is it possible to harmonize retention times?
Retention times.
I mean, could you ask? I would like to have more details about this particular question. I
Okay,
understand.
sir.
Yeah. So, I mean, if
Okay.
this individual could also expand on what exactly is the question being asked?
He is asking
I do not
that
have right now.
what is the retention time harmonizing, like you have said 2 years, 5 years. So is it like
Yeah.
there some harmonization can be done for all the records in a one line? Like you have in
Uh,
initial slide shared that some data can be should be stored for 2 years, some for 5 years, like that.
So, okay, it depends. Okay, now I get the hang of the question. So it depends like
Okay.
this. Now, it would depend upon the regulation that is being followed. Now, in case it is maybe a study that is being submitted for a regulatory compliance or a registration study conducted according to OECD guidelines, then definitely, I mean, an archival period of 5 years is what has been mentioned. But of course, having said that, it doesn't mean, kind of you cannot harmonize, but you'll have to take into account the nature of the study, the kind of, the place where it is being submitted. And if you think there is a way to harmonize the retention periods, you could go ahead. I mean,
Okay.
to answer the question more perfectly, I would say that probably, irrespective of whether it is an OECD study or an FDA study, you increase your retention period to 5 years.
Yeah, that's a
Yes,
like
sir.
a
Yes.
common point. So there is higher the retention time will not a problem. Lower the lower the time
Lower
is,
the lower the time is what will be a problem.
it's obvious. It's
Yes.
obvious. You're right. You're right.
Yes.
So
Sir,
thank
one
you.
more question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still
please go
there?
ahead.
Sir, one more question
Yes.
from Dr. Gunjay Gaonkar. What are the guidelines for validation of electronic archiving?
So again, let me go back to my previous slide out here. I could probably point you, to look at these guidelines for additional reference and reading, which would give
Okay,
you
sir.
probably a much more deeper insight of what I have managed to cover in this 1 hour and so maybe 30, 35 odd slides. Any
Yeah,
additional
Parikshit sir.
questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Personally, I have a question. Sir, apart from these faculties, many students are also watching your lecture live on some social media platforms, sir. So, M-Pharmacy students. So, sir, what are the scope for M-Pharmacy students in archiving system for a job? Is there any job scope?
Yes, definitely. I mean, kind of, see, pharmacy student alongside maybe with an IT kind of a
Yes.
supplementation would be a very good fit. I mean, if I can put it that
Okay.
way, because herein we are having an individual who understands kind of, who has got a introduction, who has got a thorough understanding of good laboratory practices and with an IT background. So this individual could probably kind of be covering, both the archives. I mean, your physical archives as well as the electronic archives.